ascending to 5D, the event, the rapture, contact, disclosure. These are all some of the examples of end-time messaging. End-time messaging is actually known as millenarianism. And millenarianism is the belief in an upcoming major transformation to society after some kind of cataclysmic transformative event that has happened. These end-time messages tend to be enhanced, increased during times of social stress. A lot of times now, what tends to be the common message is that there is a kind of dark that is going to be exposed. Another thing is that we're somehow going to be rescued by some kind of higher entity, some other greater intelligence. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I would like to clue us all in on this, because these are really just old religious and dogmatic tropes. I had it in my heart that I want us to feel the true freedom about our spirituality. Hello, welcome to the Charmed Life podcast. My name is Trisha Carr. I am your host. I am a spiritual teacher, a hypnotherapist, an empathic channel, intuitive, and I am also a telepath. And I'm here today to talk to you about something that has been happening a lot more lately, and it is millenarianism. Now, I've talked about this a couple of times on the podcast, so you may have heard me talk about it. And let me give you a refresher of what this word is. It is the belief in an upcoming major transformation of society, upheld usually by religious, social, and political groups, any or all, a combination of social, religious, or political groups. Sometimes they are just called movements of one kind or another. And these movements believe in radical changes to society following a major cataclysmic event, some kind of either worldwide or national cataclysmic event. Now, these are just basically end-time messages. End-time messages have been in all religions, not all, I guess, but many major religions. Particularly, they have been in Judaic Christianity. The Christian message has a lot of these end-time, the rapture, and different packaged in different ways. Some denominations have it more or less than others. But here's the thing, if you are here on this podcast, then you maybe are not really, you don't see yourself as a religious person. In fact, you may have left religion because, we attract what we're like. And, I was in religion when I was younger, and then I left religion. So you may actually be seeking in a similar way that I am. You may be a spiritual seeker who found themselves somehow under some kind of conditioning, be it religion or social, and you are intending to seek unity, and you're intending to speak spiritual freedom. And perhaps, I'll bet you're even intending to be of service to others. And welcome. Thank you so much for that heart that you bring to this life and this journey. However, in the spiritual community sector in which we all are probably engaging, those of us who are here on this podcast, there is a tendency for these end-time messaging scenarios, these messages to pop up. And we are in a time where it has been popping up a lot. You've heard me talk about on a few podcasts, if you are a regular listener or watcher of these videos, then you've heard me talk about the thought virus with my two guests that one time, Natasha Levenger and Tess Whitehurst. We talked about thought virus and having to do with conspiracy theories that seem to be spanning into the realm of our spiritual community. I'm saying our spiritual community. What I mean by our are people that are seekers of metaphysical philosophy and mystic arts. Once again, those are the things that I operate in. So I assume that's why you're here as well. And this is an arena that has been called New Age. I personally don't really like that term because it's associated with things that are ungrounded usually, or things that are spiritually bypassing. But perhaps we can call this New Age. Now we can call what I'm referring to about how the dogmatic kinds of thought processes and messages really are coming into, maybe we can bring up that word New Age again, because New Age tends to me, in my association, the connotation I have with it is really something that is rather religious, and religion really is some kind of outside belief system or structure, something that is created from without that we are applying to ourselves, when true spirituality is simply from the inside, is simply from your own sovereignty. And so, yes, sure, maybe we all have a personal religion, a way that we express our individualized spiritual essence. But as long as it's personal and it derives from the inside, from something that we are creating as a lens to see the world, and we're continually refining and renewing it, then we're just being human. But when there is an outside structure or construct that we are adopting onto ourselves, rather than being inspired by some message, inspiration means that it is connecting with the spirit, the truth, the true essence of who it is that you are. Religion is something that is using some kind of concept of specialness. It tends to, I should say. Some religions are quite lovely, and so let me just give that disclaimer. And possibly any religion. I mean, I'm sure there are some religions that are composed entirely of fear and hatred, but there are plenty of the world religions, the ones that have been in operation from antiquity, that any individual can use as a spiritual practice. But when we are using it in the sense where it is dogmatic, meaning that we are ruled by something outside of ourselves, then this is how religion is flawed and failing us. And so specifically, I want to talk about this concept of end times, of there being some kind of cataclysmic event where a lot of times now what tends to be the common message is that there is a kind of dark that is going to be exposed. Another thing is that we're somehow going to be rescued by some kind of higher entity, some other greater intelligence. These are all the same old tropes. And I had it in my heart that I want us to feel the true freedom about our spirituality. As I said, these end time messages tend to show up and they enhance during times of social stress. We can all agree that we have been in time of social stress, and we are even more so now. And this is what millenarianism is bringing out of us. It's bringing out of us a need to be rescued. And it is giving us a false sense of rescue. It's just around the corner. Pretty soon there will be the event that will that will cause us to ascend. We'll no longer be third dimensional, we'll be fifth dimensional. Or there's going to be some grand disclosure. And when this disclosure happens, then all of us who are the right thinking ones, the ones who are in this group think, then we will be exposed as the ones who knew what was going on all the time. The ones who are in the wrong, who are the dark alliance, some of the words that are being used, they will be exposed and they will be condemned. And then and I love this word they, when we use they wantonly with no explanation of who the they are, but this means that we're really just being in our child's mind. Anytime you hear, well, they know and they are doing it, who's they? Well, like the government. That's usually about the extent of it. All of the government? No, just the unseen they. I'm a hypnotherapist, and so the part of what it is that I do is examine the archetypes of the subconscious mind, the ones that are helpful and the ones that are really and truly the boogeyman. When we hear ourselves or we hear someone else saying they in a nondescript way, what is happening in that moment when the they is used as an oppressive sense, the they that are oppressing the good ones? It's really the wounded inner child saying, I can't control my world. I'm unhappy. I'm in pain. I'm frightened. And I don't have any control over my world. And I'm feeling even oppressed. And it is a wounded inner child, whether that was accurate or it was the perception of the child, because the parents could have been just entirely supportive and helpful, but the small child has a perception that there is a boogeyman or that they're under threat some way, or literally there could have been a genuine trauma that the parents inflicted or were not able to prevent for one reason or another. When we hear the language of they, it is the wounded inner child who is needing the attention, who is needing the empowerment. And so then the false rescue comes along with these end-time messages saying there is a bad they. There's a bad guy. There's a boogeyman. In fact, there are a lot of boogeymen, and they collectively are oppressing the we. And they are going to get their comeuppance. There are extraterrestrials who are going to rescue us from that. There is a Messiah. There is just simply a shifting of a quantum experience so that we no longer have to be dealing with the feelings and the events and the realities of this time space. Well, here's the thing. We aren't being truly responsible if we think that we can be rescued from our time space. You see, the inner child who is wounded can't be responsible. They literally don't have the power to. But we are adults. And the fact is we have the capability of responding, of having responsibility. Responsibility means the ability to respond. And as an adult, you have the ability to respond. Now, I feel like this is a time to put a footnote in here, that there are wrongs in society to correct. We have been purging ourselves of white supremacy and racism and all kinds of horrible systems that have been, structures that have been ingrained, and to the ones who, to some people, like white people, to a lot of white people, it was an awakening. Some of us didn't realize it, and some people were getting away with it. You know, there's a whole spectrum of it. So of course there are rights to wrong in society. And we have tools and strategy for that. And really the way that is done is with the heart and with education, with real education. But I want to put a footnote on that just to acknowledge it and love it and know that there are real things to do to help to advance society and to improve humanity. Footnote on that, I'm going to address it a little bit more deeply in a moment. Not specifically racism. That's just the most prominent example, you know, when we're thinking of these topics here. And so with that wounded inner child, when we identify to a they or wanting a rescue, we are then, if we are needing rescue, if we're vibrating to this insistence that there will be a rescue and there will be some kind of condemnation of a bad guy, that equals victimhood. That equals disempowerment. And it does not afford us the empowerment to take responsibility, to be the true powerful manifester that we are. It has us engage with separation consciousness because it is us and them rather than unity, supporting, helping, and serving our brothers and sisters. And this is all about, these are moments, these are isolating moments that can arrest us in our good intent, arrest and hijack our good intentions. It inhibits us from true expansion, compassion, and it maintains a lower vibration. Again, when we are hoping and wishing and depending on some kind of future rescue, even in saying that, did we not learn from Eckhart Tolle? Future rescue. Anytime now, we're going to ascend. There will be disclosure. There will be the rapture, which is the Protestant Christian belief. And so all of this futurizing, it is an addiction. Having an addiction to the future is the opposite of the present. And presence is the only place, now is the only place where God is the only place where Source is the only place where your true spiritual creator, small c, essence is, and the only place it can be empowered to create a reality that is better than the one the moment before. And again, that creator with a small c is a co-creator because we live in a unified field. We live in a quantum ecosystem. Nothing can be separated from another. And so we must engage with our brothers and sisters. We must have compassion. We must love ourselves and have compassion for ourselves, the individual, and our brothers and sisters in order to together advance, evolve, expand, ascend. What we do want is we do want to continue to raise our vibration. We do want to continue to have a unified, unconditionally positive, unified vision. Now that's very generalized. So that's our general vibration. Remembering that when we're learning spiritual content and metaphysical content, we start generalized, we start hyperbolic, we start with metaphor, and then we bring it down, we refine it down into the here and now, the specific, the particular, the manifestation of the physical. So we take these generalized concepts, these higher vibration concepts, and lest we spiritually bypass, we bring them down and we apply them to the life such that it is in this moment. We apply the very expanded to the precise now. It is not to be a challenge. Like if you can't just love everybody perfectly, then that means you're, not spiritual. That's not what we are doing when we're talking about these spiritual philosophical topics. We start big and then we move it down. We chunk it down to the small. We do want to continue to raise our vibration and continue to have a vibratory resonance with unifying messages, as opposed to separation messages. Once again, this does not exclude doing societal improvements, which I'll get to in a moment. We do want to continue to love ourselves, and we want to continue to love our brothers and sisters through whatever it is. We have to love ourselves deeply now. We do want to continue to have conscious activism. So this is where we get small, or we begin to get more particular. We do want the conscious activism to improve society. If you are called to work in certain areas of improving society, improving the way that things are literally happening right now, then we do this from a humble heart. We do this as a way to educate and to do good works, to be of service, as opposed to persecuting others, even if they are technically the bad guy, as opposed to the vibration, the frequency of persecution or of proselytizing, which means I have the right message and you don't have the right message, and as opposed to condemning others. Once again, it's not to say that those actions don't have a place in humanity, but what I'm talking about is if we are in the vibration of condemnation, then our vibration, we are now resonating with it. We are equal to the condemned vibration. So if we can upgrade that to service, education, and a humble heart that really has compassion for those who are doing acts of atrocity, and then that is the God's eye view. That is how God or source energy looks upon us, in the sense that forgive them, they know not what they do. And how can I help? What can I say? What can I do that is of help, that is healing? Do you feel, can you sense how that is coming through there? How can I help? How can we be healed? How can I do my part to improve so that these acts of atrocity, so that this pain that is one brother against another or one sister against another, that their hearts can be mended because they do not know what they are doing? Can't you see that that is a more evolved, a more expanded vibration? Doesn't it feel better? And it doesn't it feel better than the condemnation? Doesn't it feel better than persecuting or proselytizing another? Because no heart was ever changed by being told that they were stupid. Hearts are changed when we meet someone where they are and we say, I hear you. Let's work through this together. And I understand there are terrible things that are happening still. But if we can come from the place of we are all one and then bring it down into each step of the way, then we are going to be really and truly working toward an ascension effort. So here's the thing I want to say. Ascension is real. Ascension is real. But you know what? We all ascend together. So it is the collective raising of every single person, every single thing on this planet. Everyone's vibration raises together. So there is no there's nothing logical about the separation messaging of all of the bad guys are going to be, condemned, and then the good guys are going to ascend. That's not how this works. That is not what we signed up for. That is not what we signed up for. We made a soul contract with each and every person alive with us to do this together. Soul contracts are not just about, I made this contract with my mother to come into this life together. In the previous life, she was my daughter, blah, blah, blah. It's also signing the contract to be in this time-space reality, this context with all of the individuals who are coming in and all of the thought forms and all of the systems. You signed up to partner with that. I signed up to partner with it. And so abandoning that, or thinking that we can abandon that, or thinking that we can be rescued from it, is counterproductive. And this is what is happening with these end time messages. This is what is happening. It is arresting. It is actually doing the opposite. It is keeping us from our evolution. It is keeping us from our joyful connection to one another. And I want to talk about it a little bit more in the sense of what's happening metaphysically, what's happening spiritually. This millenarianism, this end time messaging that tends to show up even more during times of social stress, this is actually a thought form. It is an attachment energy. I'll explain what that is in case these are newer terms for you. Thought form is this idea that an energy that is, when it is repeated, let's say in that it is actually coming to some kind of life by just thoughts. So you think something, it's actually got some kind of form in the 4D space, thought form. The more that the thought is contributed to that form, the more somewhat sophisticated it will be, the more real it will be in the 4D space. Will it become matter? The only way it can become matter, the only way a thought form can actually be manifest into a reality is when it is omnidimensionally activated. That means that all of the dimensions of you and of all of the realities, all of the humanity, all of the animals and plants of this planet have to be signed off on it. That's the truth. That's how it is. Now, so sometimes negative thought forms can come to reality because it is the best way for us to learn our lesson, meaning bad things happen. People do bad things. Bad events happen. People do bad things to one another. And that is because it is the best way for us to learn. And we all signed off on it. And the higher selves who are experiencing it, of those who are experiencing it, signed off on it because it was the best way for us to grow. And it is in the highest alignment for our lessons. Sometimes, as painful as they possibly could be, there are horribly painful things that happen to us. Higher self signed off on it because it is the greatest opportunity for us to learn. At any rate, this end time millenarianism thought form is an attachment. It is attached to our collective consciousness, rather our collective unconscious. It's a very, very old energy. It's as old as human suffering. And honestly, it is parasitic. So as I just said, thought form energy can come to fruition, but this is So then one might be thinking, well, then logically, end times could happen. Well, first of all, yes, of course, cataclysmic world events can happen. An asteroid could hit the planet, right? Of course, that's a possibility. Ascension is real. Yes, I do experience ascension as real. However, ascension will happen seamlessly when we all have raised our vibration collectively. It will just be the next natural thing. It won't be a cataclysm even. It will be a natural growth experience. Thought forms can actually come to life. So then can this end time, can disclosure, can the rapture, can the event actually happen? Because we have created it so much, we keep creating this thought form. Can it actually come to pass? Well, what I see about this particular thought form, which by the way, when many people are contributing to a thought form, we call that an egregore. It's a collective thought form created by many different consciousnesses. This egregore is less likely to come to fruition, which many times over we've seen it not come to fruition because of its essence, it is parasitic. At least the one that I'm talking about now, in this moment, this millenarianistic, this end time messaging, it's a parasite to our development. What it does is it just arrests our energy, keeps us in a lower vibration, and keeps us in separation. It's feeding off of human indignation and human separation energies, the unconscious energies of separation. And what it does is it actually burrows in this thought form. You're imagining some kind of like weird entity, this egregore. It burrows its way in through a portal, a collective portal that is created from blame, shame, and guilt all together. Because when we feel guilt, sometimes we can't tolerate that, so we turn it into blame, something like that. When we feel shame, we can't tolerate it, so we turn it into guilt, we turn it into blame. Those are all different sides of the same messy, lower vibration energy. Again, not that blame, shame, and guilt don't have some kind of function in the human emotional landscape, but we're talking about it as a place to not stay, and it's certainly not a place to create from. It's a place to heal from so that you can get to creator energies. Blame, shame, and guilt are separation energies, so they are not the creator energies. They are the energies to heal from. That's how we get to the creator energies. So that blame, shame, and guilt, which is a portal through which this egregore burrows, it becomes this self-righteousness then, which again is a false empowerment. Self-righteousness is a false empowerment. The fact is, you're in self-righteousness, you're in separation, so you can't possibly be in unity, which means you aren't possibly in the one truth, the one will. You're not possibly aligned. We are not possibly aligned. Anytime that we feel self-righteous, me, I do it too. I'm not preaching to, like I'm not the one as well. It's contrary to love. It is contrary to the concept of God. It is contrary to the concept of higher power. It's contrary to the concept of unity, ecosystem, unconditional love. Self-righteousness is contrary to unconditional love. And so it is a 3D thought form, a 3D egregore, an egoic, this millenarianism end time messaging. It is a 3D egregore looking and for when we feel disempowered and we are seeking a false rescue, or we're seeking rescue of any kind. When we're seeking rescue and escape, it is the wounded inner child. And that inner child needs our love and attention. It needs to heal, he or she needs to heal from the trauma. And that is the only way that we continue to move forward. And so I do have news for all of us, including me. Anytime we think that we are somehow superior to another, whether it's superior in understanding, superior in vision, knowledge, even superior in our vibration or that feeling, it's precisely when we are inferior. It's precisely when we are inferior, anytime that we think that we are superior. And so I offer all of this with so much love, with so much compassion, and with my own heart and my own ear open to it. Even though I'm the teacher, I am the humblest of students. And so I want to say that now. As I said, the higher messaging, the higher point of view does not exclude the grounded point of view. But if we could be a walking prayer, if we could be walking on this journey in this planet, absolutely present and completely aware, 100% aware and aligned and vibrating to the pristine unity consciousness, and that when we sense some kind of blip in the energy, that we're actually able to send that person more love, because that's what an ecosystem does. That's what a garden does. There is a deficiency in the garden. They send more nutrients to it. The stronger nutrients, the ones who are more aligned with nourishment, in this metaphor, we're talking about love, sends the nourishment to that. And that is really what the opportunity is for us to be walking around on this planet. When we sense that there is some deficiency, when we sense that there is something that is not love, that rather than bopping into fear, blame, shame, or guilt, that we have the opportunity to hold the light even more strongly and send love that direction. It is possible for worldwide cataclysmic events to happen. We just had and are still having a pandemic, but we're getting through it, right? And of course, it is possible for some large-scale exposure to happen. However, the best way that we could deal with any of those things is that our vibration is raised, that we have a positive outlook, that the best way that we could be prepared for something spectacular to happen is for us to be able to be positively oriented, to be able to be more in the God's eye view perspective. So what that is to say is that even if somehow some of these end time messages are correct in any way or another, or if they're tapping into the fact that there is going to be some kind of cataclysmic event happening, moving into it, first of all, from a standpoint of wanting to be rescued, or second of all, from a blame, shame, or guilt, and that there's an us and them, is not the way that we're going to have a vibration raised to the point of being able to handle it, to deal with it in a way that is providing us the opportunity for expansion. Now, having said that, of course, cataclysmic events could happen, or, whatever. I'm not going to name teachers who are, bad teachers. I think that would be contrary to my message. But I do want to go ahead and give a nod to one teacher who talks about contact, meaning with ET brothers and sisters, our star sisters and brothers, and that is Darryl Anka. When he talks about first contact, honestly, as I've heard him talk about that and teach that, and the messages he pulls through, he's a channel, it doesn't sound like rescue. Darryl Anka, for example, is a great example. He channels Bashar. He's talking about the fact that we're ascending, as you know what I mean? Like we are raising our vibration, that we're not going to be rescued. That isn't the message that I hear, for example, in that particular teacher. So we don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater either. And what I mean by that is, if you have some kind of spiritual paradigm, and there's one part of it that is maybe a little bit fear-inducing, maybe has a little bit to do with this false rescue sense. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of the rest of the paradigm, all of the other practices or protocols are not helpful. Because a lot of those things, just like I said, some religions, people use religions in a very beautiful, spiritually evolutionary, advancing manner. And that's because some of those thought forms, these are other kinds of thought forms, positive thought forms. There are thought forms in that where humans have connected to these concepts positively. And so we can actually resource it in a very beautiful and helpful way. So if you do find that you have some kind of, you're noticing, hey, maybe I have a little millenarianism in this particular spiritual belief or things that are in my paradigm, just don't try to operate in fear about that either. Part of your spiritual paradigm may be beautiful and very helpful, very unity consciousness. So there's no need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just be discerning and look at every part of what it is that you are using as a tool. And what's very important there is that we are to be using these concepts, these paradigms. They're meant to be tools to us. They're not meant to be our overlord. They're not meant to be the dogmatic master. In fact, you are spiritually sovereign, and these tools, these stories, these paradigms, these different concepts are meant to help to be utilized to improve that awareness of your spiritual sovereignty. And so, you may need to go into some, come to Jesus time with all of the different concepts that are inside your spiritual paradigm and just use discernment. And discernment is balanced. Discernment is objective and neutral, again, like the God's eye view. And so that's what we want to do. You don't have to necessarily throw out the baby with the bathwater. To include any book that you may have read and there's a part of it that's not necessarily perfectly aligned with you, that's okay. If it is something that is fear-inducing, or if it is something that is separation consciousness, or if it is something that is end times, then yeah, let that be in your awareness. That's my advice. So with that, as I end this podcast episode today, let us be on our own side. Let us recognize, as in the law of one, Ra calls the selves and the other selves. You and I are just another self to each other. And let us continue to move toward ascension. Yes, continue to move toward more of a living in 5D, but you can bring 5D into your life right now. And that 5D is the more of the ecosystem, more of the unity, more of the capacity to have compassion and send the loving nourishment when we see that we have a brother or sister who is off the mark in one way or another. And it isn't self-righteous, of course. It is self-loving and other self-loving. Okay, guys, I just really want us to make sure that we're paying attention to any of these old dogmatic tropes. These are all just human tendencies. And I assume that, you're of a similar mindset, that you would like to be spiritually sovereign and free of dogma. And I vote for that as well. Let us all continue to purify so that we can be free, spiritually free entirely, and to be of service entirely. So I invite you to like, subscribe, share, and comment. And I want you to know that this comes from my heart. And my intention is to heal myself and to help us all heal together. And I appreciate you for joining your intention here as well. And, I have another podcast with my best friend, Crystal Ann Compton. It's called the Light Shine Podcast. So find the link in the description and you can find us there. We're doing a couple episodes every week. I would also love it if you want to join my newsletter. Link is in the description or show notes. And because on my newsletter, I'm going to be doing giveaways. I'm going to be doing lunar alchemy reports and channeling some messages on right there through the newsletter portal. So sign up there. I just want to thank you for shining your light on our beautiful world. And I want to encourage you, and I deeply appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.